Okay, so everybody come on in as always for Empowerment Week. Just getting this set up to make sure that we're live on my page.
Awesome.
So come on in, everybody, and please share. Share now. It's always good to share now. So let me get this started on my Instagram. Get some love here. So we good. We are so good. So happy Thursday, everybody. Oh, this week has been going by really fast. So hello and welcome to the Renee Adams Show and Empowerment Week. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe to my page. Also, if you'd like to be a guest, please leave me a message and let's chat. Tonight, I have my guest, Jatali Bellanton, who has raised over $500K and $1 million in commitments for the school project she is spearheading in Ghana, which is exciting. Plus, she is the founder of Kidpreneur, a brand that uplifts and encourages our kids to become successful in the next generation of leaders. And Jatali is such an amazing, inspiring CEO, example of women entrepreneurs today. And she also is a speaker, which I was like looking everywhere. I'm like, this girl is no joke. She really has this passion and drive to teach about financial literacy. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. So the same for you. I mean, I was Googling you and I was like, sis is on a roll, great energy, upbeat. And that's what's really needed right now when we're dealing with all these negative COVID things and just energy being sucked from so many of our people right now. It's nice to have a refreshing, happy face out there. So
thank you. I appreciate that. Great beginning. So Jatali, tell us a little bit about your backstory and how this all began for you.
So I worked in finance for many years. I came from a background where one parent was very financially literate, very successful, very on it, budgeting, conscious of not using money as a coping mechanism, things of that nature. Then I had the other parent who was a complete polar opposite. And that parent was like, when you talk about financial mistakes on top of financial mistakes, that's the person you would look at. So although they didn't remain together, I grew up in a situation where I got to see both extremes of the poverty line and the rich line, right? Where one minute you're like, you can't lack for anything. And the other minute it's like, okay, sugar water, and that's what you're having for dinner. So, those two extremes as parents, it just kind of put in me from a young age that I just didn't want to ever financially be in a place of lack. And it just kind of fueled me to make sure that I was always in the know when it comes to the financial literacy aspect of things, budgeting, investing, saving, knowing that you can't just save and think you're going to do enough, because in the world that we live in, investing is equally as important. Learning about mutual funds. I was the 10-year-old asking these kind of questions. I was the
8-year-old. 10 years old?
Yeah, I started really aggressively when I was 8. At 8 years old, I started asking like, Daddy, teach me what you can. And by the time I was 15, 16, I was doing my first paid internship for Credit Suisse First Boston. And I was starting the investment banking world. And, now I'm in my mid 30s and I literally have been in it my whole life. So I left the setting to become an entrepreneur. But that's only the difference. Now we have an organization, Kids Who Bank, and we have the Kidpreneur Awards. So with Kids Who Bank, we teach, we go into the school systems and teach financial literacy to grade school kids and high school students. But then with Kidpreneur Awards, we honor youth for entrepreneurs and philanthropists and the adults creating ladders for them. So we get to highlight people like yourself who are making sure that our youth actually have good examples, because representation is just so important. And even as a child, I wish I had more representation that were my skin tone or had my curly hair or whatever it was.
And you're right, it's very important to know about these things, and it's good to know in your youth early, because when we buy our first car, we have no idea how this is going to impact not only our pockets, but the long-term money that we lose over time.
Bingo.
Yeah.
Bingo. And so people don't realize, even purchasing a car, there are ways that you do it where, especially if you're one of those people who likes to change up your cars every so often, Or just understanding that if the car they tell you at the dealership is $100,000, but by the minute you drive off of that car lot with it, how much is the car worth?
Right.
And that's a very important conversation to have. What is the depreciation of that particular car? You know, and buying one that, you know, within 10, 20 years is going to be back up to where it started. So, you know, that certain cars like Beamers, certain vehicles, not every one of that particular company, but like they'll have a certain model that does very well.
Right.
You might buy it at 15,000 and within 2 years it's worth 40 to 50,000, or within 5 years it's worth that amount. So I think that in life we need to look at everything as an investment opportunity more. So if you're buying anything that is above $100, in my opinion, it better be something that can also double as an investment.
I know, that's right. When you think like that, see, I would love to have you as my friend.
Well, you know what? We're officially friends now. That's it. You have me. That's it. You have me on live saying it. You know?
Yes, to grow together and learn, and you know, because it is people like that you need to have around you, to where they can teach you about these things on a daily basis. Like it's just, you know, it's like drilled into your head, where it's almost second nature of how you think.
Not almost, it becomes second nature.
It becomes second nature.
It becomes second nature. And that's what happens even with my friends, you know, when we're having conversations, the conversation around a dinner table, even with our children, have changed. You know, so those of us who have kids, you know, we're talking about budgeting. We have a budget chart on our fridge, and our kids are having these conversations. You know, they'll reach out to me like, Jatali, how do I get my kids to not spend as much during COVID? And so we're having these kind of conversations, and then we even bring the kids in. So we'll have a day where we're at the beach like the other day, and we're like getting the kids into stocks, and we're talking about stocks in front of them. And, you know, we'll include the kids like, hey, you know, do you know who made your little water slides? Like, you know what I mean? You like those little water shoes, but do you know if that's a company that you can purchase? And just having that simple conversation with the kids, going on Google, showing them, okay, this is a company that's in the public stock market. It's just something to just really change the dynamics. Yes.
Yeah, it does. And when you start thinking about, because the private sector and the public sector is a big difference, and there's a reason behind it. You know, and when they understand that they have their own business, they'll understand it, you know, what's behind the public sector that I need to know about, and is this the right thing for me? Or can I be private and still be just as successful and prosperous in my business as I would to go, you know, public? Which you can, knowing the difference.
100%. And then you can also know that you learn about venture capitalism, you learn about startups. How do you raise money for something on your own? Do you need to always use your own money to do everything? Do rich people use their money to do everything? Do they even pay full price for anything? And then these are concepts that you start to introduce to your children, that, hey, rich people, a lot of them don't spend their own money to do a lot of other things that they succeed in. Oftentimes they use investors. And even, you know, the luxury items that you see them in, sometimes they're gifted these luxury items. You know, like you know, you have the Neymars of the world, where you see somebody with this Lamborghini or a certain car that you're like, wow. But some of these Range Rovers and cars are gifted to these influencers because people want to see them in the car, because they know other people are going to want to buy that same vehicle, and perpetuate this cycle, which can be a cycle of poverty or cycle of wealth.
So what would you say are the three largest or best investments for, let's say, for starter, and let's then go to more advanced? Like, what would you say some of those would be for a starter, and some for more advanced people who want to invest?
So I'm going to give you three things that I feel like are good, rather you're a starter or advanced. And so one of them is real estate. If you're a starter and you're afraid of buying a property or a house, or dealing with the headache of tenants or a flip or anything like that, or maybe you don't even think you have financially enough money to do so, then you can look at different aspects of investing in real estate, which is a real estate investment trust, which is a stock where it's real estate companies that like own buildings and own chains of hospitals. They own supermarket chains and things of that nature. And because it's a real estate investment trust, REIT, aka a REIT, what ends up happening is you're investing in the real estate world, but in a smaller scale. It might be $20, it might be $30 per share, you know, and then those companies also pay you dividends. Now, something that's not really done enough in the Black community is that residual income, coming in. So imagine investing in a stock where you get a dividend and you get residual income.
Yes.
Dividends, for those who don't know, is a way where just because you're a stockholder, let's say you have 1,000 shares in the company, quarterly or annually, they will pay you a certain amount of money, like it could be 61 cents per share that you own. So as long as you own, like, let's say 1,000 shares of that company, or it could be even 5 shares of that company, they're going to give you a certain amount of dividends for the amount that you actually own.
It is so, and I know this is probably a little off, but it's so refreshing just to hear, you speak on this, like just our people speak on stuff like this.
Thank you.
And it's very encouraging because a lot of people don't step into it at that kind of age that you did and pursue it in a way that you can really, you're so well versed and you can really explain it. So that person that's illiterate, that don't really know, it's easier for them to pick up on.
Honestly, it's funny that it's like some of my friends say it's my magic blessing, I guess you would say, but that's one of the things that, like, I used to think, well, why don't more people do it? And it wasn't honestly until I created the curriculum and I was in the school systems that I realized that it was literally that the way they broke down financial literacy for adults was kind of like you're using all these big fancy words and you just expect people to jump in there and understand it. But this is not something that we're taught from young. It's kind of like SAT words, right? You work your way up to those SAT words. Right. And then they find ways like context clues and things of that nature to help you build yourself up to remember those SAT words.
Right.
But there isn't really anything much like that for adults. And so I just had to catch myself. And I had a friend of mine, actually, he's a ex-NFL player. And it was funny because we had this conversation. It was him and a female that I know who works for Morgan Stanley, and we're having conversations. She said, we need to simplify the financial world. Wow. And they were like, yo, Jatali, you have all these fancy terms, but when you create your curriculum, please remember to be human. Yeah. And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, yeah, you're talking about depreciation, appreciation, APRs, compound interest. And he's like, he's like, my eyes are glossing over. Right. And
it's a foreign language.
Yeah, and so I'm like, so what's your APRs? It's 24.6%. Oh my God. And he's like, you sound appalled, but I don't even know what that means. Like, why are you appalled? And I was like, a 24% APR. If you borrowed $4,000, if you make minimum payments, by the time you're done making minimum payments, you would have paid back almost $8,000, which meant that it was almost as if you bought a car for $8,000 versus $4,000. You gave away $4,000 of your hard-earned money.
Yeah.
And then when we had that English just so broken down so clearly, they both were like, what the hell? And so paying minimum payments no longer seemed interesting, right?
Oh, I know, right?
When we're making our minimum payments, we're good.
You just trying to be like cheap. And and like, oh, okay, paid is done.
Oh, I'll make a minimum payment on this one.
Yes.
Yeah. But realistically, when you do that, you're actually hurting yourself. You sometimes, if your APR is high, you end up paying almost double to triple what you borrowed.
Yeah.
So you're giving them away your hard-earned money. I'm like, where do we give away money? Like, where, us Black people, we don't like to give away money. Sometimes, but it's like, that's what you're doing. You're giving it away to someone who's not homeless, who lives in a mansion somewhere.
Yeah.
So, when we start to have these conversations and just changing the language to a way that we can understand it, I think that it just makes such a world of a difference.
It does. No, you're absolutely right. It just, it opens your eyes to a whole new world. A whole new understanding that you didn't see before. And once you do that, your life does start to change when you apply those tips and tricks and things like that you never applied before. That's a change that's going to change your financial, wealth. And
definitely. When you think about it, so we talk about REITs, right? So that was one of the options, right?
Okay.
So we talk about that. And then a second option that I would really say for anyone, rather you're a beginner or advanced, is physical commodities. Physical commodities can be something simple like a piece of gold. So if you have actual gold, keep in mind, the purer the gold, 18 karat or better, then cool. But if you can only afford 14 karat gold, then guess what? It's still an investment in something. But you know what? Guess what? Silver and gold coins are equally important. You look at something like silver. At one point, a few months ago, silver was at $12 to $14 per ounce.
Wow.
Right? And now it's like, the other day it was like $24, $26.
Wow.
it fluctuates. And just the way the stock market fluctuates, gold and silver prices fluctuate. I mean, look at gold. Gold is at 19 in the 1900s right now, right? But in my lifetime, gold was in the hundreds, right?
Mm-hmm.
Gold for $600-700 in my lifetime. And just even before coronavirus and all this stuff started happening, gold was at like $1,200, $1,400, $1,300. So when you look at that, depending how much money you have to invest with per ounce, let me clarify, $1,200 per ounce, $1,400 per ounce. So now $1,400, you would have made a $500 profit just with coronavirus. Now it's at $1,900. Same for silver. And you're like, oh, but that sounds like a lot of money. But guess what? Silver was at $12 per share.
Mm-hmm.
How many times did you go and spend $20 on Thai food or something?
Yes. Yes.
How many bottles of wine did you buy with that $12? You know what I mean? So granted, some wine is more expensive, but you know, realistically, we've probably spent $12 on underwear when we could have been.
I know a lot of things we be doing, we shouldn't be doing, spending money.
You know what I'm saying? So it's really just changing the thought process as to what is an investment to us, right? Investments are physical commodities. It could be silver, it could be gold, it could be collectible stamps, it could be it could be a baseball card. Honestly, find what you're interested in and find what within your categories that you're interested in are actual collectibles or items that you're not going to be opposed to learning a little bit more about. Even, you know, these Pokemon cards. There was a Pokemon card that the other day, I have one of my students reached out to me and was like, hey, I have this Pokemon card. Can you tell me more about this? And, you know, he was like, he had the card, he was playing with it. And someone was like, you know, that's a hard to find card and you should look into that. And the card was a card that he bought for $1 in a pack. Okay. And now the card is worth like $41 for that one little card. So, you know, everything has a potential of increasing or decreasing in value. It's really about changing the way we look at what is appreciating and what's depreciating.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another too. That's like another thing, you know, thinking outside of the box when you're investing. It's like, okay, everyone thinks about real estate, but realistically, outside of real estate, what are your other options? You have physical commodities.
Okay.
And then the third thing I would really say is for a beginner investing, I would really say that dividend stock thing. Like have some stocks in the stock market. Don't be afraid because of this crash and everything that you're hearing about the market crash. Don't be afraid completely. You know, calculated risk, because there are things called short-term stocks and there are long-term stocks, right? And the difference between a short-term stock is short-term stocks are stocks that you're going to invest in right now that you have to watch a little bit closer because they're literally doing well because the economy is doing bad. So if COVID is doing bad and, you know, certain companies are going to do, hospitals and certain businesses and corporations are going to do better because of COVID, right? But then certain corporations are hurting now because of COVID. Like, let's say the airline companies are not doing as well, and Carnival Cruise Line and those kind of cruise line companies aren't doing as well. Right. The more professional opinion to you would be like, well, those might be long-term stocks. You buy them now while they're not doing so well, and then those are stocks that, you know, in 1 to 2 years will turn around.
Okay. So those are the three.
Right. So those are my three. It's thinking outside of the box, realizing, you know, what you need to pay closer attention to, and just not living in fear, but just understanding that honestly, saving is not enough. I don't want you out there thinking if you're saving that you're doing enough, because realistically,
not. I'm talking to you. I'm gonna be in touch with you.
Yes, well, you know, now we're friends on Instagram. I'm gonna slide into your DMs and send you my cell phone number.
Girl, yes, I'm serious. I gotta
tell you, 100%.
Yes. So as far as your routine, like your routine, your daily routine on studying the stock markets, like what is your routine? It may not just be that. Like, what is your routine to keep up on all of this?
So, I mean, I have a quarterly routine. Like beginning of the year, there's certain things that in the first quarter I'm watching and I'm paying attention to, and then towards the end of the year, like I have at the beginning of the year, I always more focus on real estate. By the last quarter of the year, I'm more focused on stocks because I know that it's the end of the year. I'm watching what's happening and what am I going to be investing in for the following year. And then property, like purchasing land versus like property itself, like houses. I might be looking more at lands because for some reason, at the end of years, in my opinion, in my professional experience, people who did poor throughout the year try to unload properties and land. So, to me, that's always like a good time of the year because people, it's like the end of the year.
Wow.
We're about to have a new president coming in.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, I want to get into a position where I could leave America if, whoever person, some people are pro Biden and Harris and some people are anti. Some people are pro Trump. Some people are still anti-Trump, right? So there are people right now who on both sides, no matter who wins, are like, I'm leaving America. Or I'm moving to the sticks. I no longer want to live in the city. So me as an investor, this is a perfect time because I'm like, so you wanted to move, you said. And then I'm doing my homework and I'm like, this is a place that even if you move, it's always going to do well, right? Whereas like there's certain areas that I'm like, you couldn't pay me to try to invest in.
So when you say that do you say that you make more of the right decisions now than you have before, or how are you as far as how savvy you are in making those decisions?
Oh, of course. I mean, I'm always learning. So like, even I just came back from the trip in Ghana and, like, I feel like I learned some more things when I was there. And it's like, I'm always learning. I'm always growing. Even the way I attack real estate now compared to how I attacked it 3-4 years ago when I first started, the rooms are changing. And so as those rooms change, I'm meeting investors with more money. I'm learning more about grants that me as a Black woman investor in the real estate world, I qualify for. Things that I didn't know I qualified for before. So the rules are changing for me. The rules of engagement are changing. I remember when I had to put up front my money most of the time to do deals. And now I normally have investors who I can just go to and maybe put a minimal of my amount and have other investors' money in. Or, I can team up with somebody like, hey, this property is $1 million, 1.1, but we could sell it for 4. Can we go half in? Those are options that I didn't have before.
Wow, that's true.
You don't want to go to the bank. Sometimes you don't want to deal with the bank and the bureaucracies of them asking so many questions as to where's the property, what you're going to do with it, and potential interest rates that the bank might try to charge.
Right. Yeah. When you talk about that kind of option, it's about your credentials too, as well as the other investors.
Exactly.
To deal with the credentials is very important. You just don't want to be, jumping into business with someone and
100%
just because of this.
Exactly. And that's another thing. So it's like over time you build those relationships and you also know like beyond credentials, what do they have to lose? The list continues, right? Okay. So like I had a person that the guy, because he had done millions of deals and people, he could show his portfolio, he could show his QuickBooks and show I've done this deal and closed that deal. They just jumped into bed with this person and did business with them. But the person had like no social media, no online presence. And then they invested in a $5 million deal with this person, and the person went ghost, disappeared. They didn't even know that person actually lived. And I was just like, what? Like, you need to at least know where they live. Do they have a social media presence? Do they have hundreds of thousands of followers? Where if this really needs to go viral, then you can make this go viral and find this person wherever they are in the world.
No contract either?
Come again?
No contract?
They had contracts, but honestly, it's like finding a ghost in the middle of it. It's like a needle bag. You know what I mean? You just have a name of a person and maybe a picture of their ID and a contract. And so even the contract was a promissory note, right? And it wasn't even like an official legit contract. And I was like, a promissory note. And so, stories like that, the person, it's funny, was a person I'd done deals with before. Okay. And, they used to always tell me like, oh, your deals, they take too long. I know somebody who flips properties in like 1 month versus 6 months. And I was like, okay, well, they're like, oh, can you do your flips quicker? And I was like, look, our turnaround is 3 to 9 months. This is the interest rate. Yes, it's not 1 month turnaround with a 30% return, but I'm like, if it sounds too good to be true, you have to be careful.
That's right.
And sometimes that's the biggest thing, is getting too greedy.
That's a good point, because it does sound good. Like,
I get 30% in 1 month. And but I was like, look, I don't really know the particulars about this. I don't know what to tell you, but I can't do that. And when I can, it's not a regular basis. Like, once in a blue moon, something like that might come onto the table. But I was like, good luck, God bless. And they went and they continued the deal, and then they called me back like, Jatali, you would never guess what happened. And I was like, look, fam, like, money is not an overnight thing. Like, real money good money, no government person knocking on your door telling you owe them some money, legit on the table. You have to be very careful in our community that we can't rush it. I mean, you have to take your time and make sure that you're poking any holes that could potentially be there, and then there's going to be no leaks in whatever you're doing, because we don't want that kind of energy. And who wants to look over the corner? It's like the person who robs the bank for $10,000-$20,000 that you just went to jail for the rest of your life for $20,000.
Yes. Oh my God.
You could have worked hard and earned that. Like, yes. You could have worked at McDonald's and earned that money.
Like, now that you're caught, it's a big deal, but if you didn't, it's like, oh, let me try something else. Let's take another risk.
And like, is it really worth it? And to give you an example, I remember when I worked in investment banking, there was a person who he tried to cut some corners and did some inside trading, and it was 9.5 years later, something he did in the beginning of his tenure. 9.5 years later, one day we're in the office and the FBI roll in, or whoever it was. I think it was FBI, if I remember correctly. And they roll in and they were like, yeah, you're under arrest in front of the whole office.
Wow.
He's like, what are you talking about? And they were like, are you sure you want us to tell you what we're talking about? He's like, yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. And then they said the name of the client. And they were like, well, did you remember this account? And it was inside tipping and blah, 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 blah. And they arrested him in the office. And so everything he worked on after that, from his house, he had a house on the Jersey Shore, a mansion in the Hamptons. Wow. Everything was gone.
Lost everything.
And then
for a temporary little bit of time, and now everything is gone.
And that was a deal that he might have made $50,000 for. But they're like, well, that $50,000 could have actually helped you to make all the other money that you made and gave you like an edge. So now everything is basically connected to it. And so when you think about stuff like that, we live in a world that literally, if you try to cut corners, you can have that happen to you. It's not worth it.
Not worth it.
Honestly, slow and steady wins the race. This is one of those moments where slow and steady wins the race. And when it comes to money, don't try to cut corners. When it comes to your business, don't cut corners. Take the time. Do your homework, do your research. Make sure you actually put in that energy and that time towards whatever it is that you want to create. And slow and steady wins the race. Don't compare yourself to that person that you notice is an overnight sensation, because that overnight quote unquote sensation, you might just blink and they're there overnight, but that doesn't mean it actually was overnight for them.
Right. Yeah. It's hard. It does. Behind the scenes, you never know what's going on.
Exactly. Like the Renee Adams Show, in a week from now, you might see her on, CNN with her own segment, whatever it might be. But realistically, or BET, whatever, right? Realistically, if you win an NAACP Image Award for broadcasting, people are like, oh my God, like it wasn't overnight. You're here, you're interviewing people, you're putting in that work towards what it is that you want to do.
That's right. And that's just where it needs to go, and it should. It has to. And if you don't want, that's the way it has to go if you don't want to end up in jail for the rest of your life.
Yeah, and I mean, even beyond the jail, you just don't want to over your shoulder for the rest of your life.
That's true, because that's annoying. Like we like our peace of mind.
You know what I'm saying? So who wants to be looking over their shoulder like,
right, all the time? Like, no. So
we live in a clean, easy, breezy life, and we're laughing all the way to the bank, and knowing that there is nothing on this earth from the devil himself who can't really say pull up on you, and you got to keep it that way.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so are there any other projects that you're working on right now that you would like to talk about before we end the broadcast?
I think the biggest thing is just nationwide, just bringing the knowledge of financial literacy nationwide. We're going into more colleges. I think that's important to discuss. And then we have a youth art museum that we're building out in Ghana, which is the project with my and we'll be doing some very interesting things in programming wise out there with that. And I think it's just really exciting because what we do there, we'll be doing here in the States. And so we're gonna start there, just because I wanted to do something out of the country and make sure that, since I'm gonna be spending a lot of time there anyway, that we're doing that as well. And then other projects. I think those are the main things I want to talk about right now. Honestly, I'm also in law school for cannabis law, so I'm also in Ghana. That's something I want to do. Is now that they've legalized it in Ghana, I definitely want to enter that market a little bit.
Okay.
But so So if anybody's out there, Ghanaian or in the cannabis industry out here in the States, feel free to always reach out. I'm always networking and always learning. So, you know, that's one aspect of who we are as people.
Yeah.
And it's been great to just be like surrounded by so many people, because when they hear cannabis, they just think weed and smoking.
Yeah, and it's not. It's
not. You know, it's hemp, it's clothing, it's textile, it's cars, it's plastic, it's building houses, it's fuel, regenerative fuel.
Wow.
It's so many things.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, thank you. Because look, you just told me something that I wasn't really that, you know, broad in knowledge about. So thank you for sharing that information.
You're welcome.
Absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, anything else?
No, so yeah, that's it. But yeah, so that's it. Oh, and that's actually, you know what, a fourth thing for people who are advanced or beginners investing, the cannabis industry is definitely one to look at when it comes to investing, because everything from CBD oils to the lights that extract it. If you're afraid of the hemp itself and you're like, oh, look, I'm Christian, I don't know if this is Christian. You know, I've had everything. I've had pastors come up to me like, I don't know, Jatali. I've had priests come up to me like, cannabis. And I'll be like, look, even the lights that they dry it with, you can invest in the lights itself, and that could be a good investment. You can look at the machines that extract the oil, and that's a good investment. And you don't actually have to invest in the plant or the herb itself. You could just be investing in the machine that does that. And that's something that I don't think enough people like. It's $1 billion industry that a lot of our people have been arrested for. And now we're watching Caucasian and other demographics make millions off of it, billions off of it.
Yeah, that's right.
So don't get caught up in the past of what's happened to our people. In fact, if anything, allow that to propel you closer to that industry and making sure that you are also part of the people that are profiting off of something that has suppressed us for so long.
Yeah. And it shows that you've done your research, because again, you just informed and educated us on some things that we may not have known about that industry. So I appreciate you for that. And I appreciate you for being on and coming on to the show.
Thank you once again for having me. I look forward to our next chat. And, you know, I look forward to posting this clip.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's always great to have guests like you, Jatali. So I really appreciate you too. So I just want to leave off by saying anyone that wants to be on the show, you can inbox me. Also, please like, share, and comment. Share, and comment on this broadcast. I love your support as always. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Tomorrow's Friday, Empowerment Week. Woo, yes. What a great week. So thank you again, everybody. Thanks for your support. And thank you again, Jatali.
Thank you for having me. I look forward to our next chat.
Yes. Bye.